Hello there, and thank you for tuning in to this webinar as part of DigiLeaders AI Week 2025. I'm Natalie Luckham. I'm the founder and director of Naturally Social, and my webinar today is called 5 Steps to Using AI Authentically. I've been working in social media for over 15 years now, and in the last couple of years, I've pivoted a lot of my work into the world of AI because it's had such a profound impact on my work life balance, my job satisfaction, and indeed client retention. I not only use it in my consultancy business, but I also teach business owners, freelancers, charities, and public sector how to implement it and use it responsibly and effectively. Now, today's session is all about AI transparency and authenticity. We're using AI all the time, and most people are using it whether they choose to tell their clients, their customers, or their colleagues about it or not. For me, that's going to have huge ramifications and implications for trust and responsible use of this technology. And whether or not we realize it, AI is been baked into things that we've been using for many years. So I'm pretty sure most of you are using AI in some way already. As I said, it might be ChatGPT, Canva's AI tools, Grammarly, maybe, or even just adding auto captions on things like Instagram Reels. These are all examples of AI. And it would be great for you to start thinking, or just to give yourself a couple of minutes to think about where and how you've used AI in your work. It might simply be using Canva templates. It might be background removers or something like Claude for copywriting. As I said, AI has been integrated into our lives for a very long time now. Think subscription services on TVs, smart speakers, Siri, Canva, as I mentioned, suggesting design layouts, people using ChatGPT for drafting emails, Zoom, writing meeting summaries, even predictive text on your phone. That's all AI. Now, a study from Metricool earlier this year showed that 96% of marketers are now using AI in their workflows. 96%. That's huge. But the problem is that they may not necessarily be telling people about it. That's huge. But here's the thing. While business owners, freelancers, comms teams are adopting AI at lightning speed, often customers and audiences don't even know that that's happening. And my question for you is this: if your clients or customers found out you were using AI, how would they feel? Would they feel reassured that you were being efficient? Or would they feel cheated because they had been led to believe it would all be you delivering on that work? Or perhaps you just didn't have that conversation right. And this, for me, is why transparency is key. So let's talk about trust. For small businesses, solopreneurs, freelancers, public sector organizations, charities, trust is currency. You may not have the biggest budgets or the fanciest offices, but what you do have is relationships and reputation. If a customer finds out you're using AI and you've never mentioned it, they might feel you've hidden something, even if you didn't mean to. But on the flip side, when you're open about it, it can actually strengthen your credibility. You're showing that you're innovative, you're efficient, and that you're thinking about how to deliver the best possible service to your client or customer. I like to use this analogy. AI is a bit like a sous chef in a kitchen. The sous chef is chopping the veg, prepping the sauces, getting everything ready, but it's the chef, and that's you in this case, that still decides the recipe, adds the seasoning, and plates the dish. That human touch is what makes it special. So rather than thinking of AI in a kind of guilt driven way or as a threat to being authentic, think of it as a tool that you can and quite rightly should own proudly, as long as you're clear about how you're using it. Quick caveat, you don't even have to use AI if you don't want to, but most of us are aware of its gains. A freelance copywriter, for example, isn't likely to want to use AI to write content for their clients end to end because they probably really enjoy that process. However, AI can be a huge help to them when researching client industries or subject matters or even finding new clients, and that's fine. This grounds you in how you want to use it, and that's authenticity. When I decided to explore AI in 2023, I went back to the office, demoed some tools, and got the team excited. And so we created a framework to keep us authentic and grounded about how we would use AI. So we'll always start with the task. This is, the beginning point of asking, like, what is taking the most time? Where is AI going to be of benefit to us? To us, what tasks are we doing repetitively? For me, it's responding to leads or writing proposals. But for another member of my team, it was creating content calendars every month for our clients. And for another, it was creating client reports every month for the same clients. Once we knew what task and what our objective was, i.e., where we needed to use AI or explore AI for productivity and efficiency gains, we then looked at the tools that we were able to use or could use. And that involves a bit of research and a bit of trialing, right? So we tried a few tools and we asked for recommendations from those we trusted in our networks who were already doing this kind of work. For you, you might be starting with Copilot or ChatGPT if this is what you're used to, or even if you're allowed to use based on your organization, or you may even be restricted by budget. But my point here is, like, if you're looking for diary management in that task piece because you get so many emails, then something like ChatGPT probably isn't going to be the best tool for you to adopt. Something like Notion might be better. Once you've had some recommendations and you've done some research on the tools, the next part is about training, because education is the key here. You want to learn from others, but also upskill yourselves and upskill your team as well. There is no point in giving somebody access to something like ChatGPT and not supporting them with how to really use it. And when I mean really use it, I mean things like prompting, generating their own use cases to take advantage of all the different features it uses and has inside it, and also training them how to make sure that any outputs are on brand and look and sound like you and are sense checked. Once we've trained ourselves on the tool and trained each other on the tools and we know our task, etc., the next part is about trialing it. So trialing the tool versus the task before you embed it regularly into your work or practice. If we look at that content calendar example that I mentioned, that one of my team members said to me was taking a lot of time, that's great. But we wouldn't decide to use it from day one and then realize when it came to the crux of it, it's not fit for the task at hand. We needed to stress test it and practice with it. Finally, we want to tweak anything that we need to. So refine your use case or your way of using it. So as an example, if a team member came to me with that content calendar to say actually ChatGPT was doing a pretty bad job of writing those content calendars, rather than us saying, oh, okay, well, that doesn't work then, we'll go back to doing it the old way. We actually go back and ask, well, do we need to do anything differently? Do we need to refine the prompt? Are we being clear with what outputs we want? Have we given it enough knowledge? And lastly, is it really capable of doing this? If we're saying yes to everything, then perhaps this tool isn't right for the task. So for content calendars, as an example, we did actually build a custom GPT. But after trialing it, I realized that we had given it way too much information and that custom GPTs worked at their peak when executing real granular tasks. So we created a custom GPT per client so we could train it on each individual client's use case, needs, and brand voice. And then it worked a treat. So, one of the things that we're really clear on is when we use AI, but also when we won't be using AI. So, for some, that might be writing. They might be clear and saying, like, they don't want to use something like ChatGPT or Gemini to write their copy. For the entire team, one of the things that we were adamant that we wouldn't be using AI for was community management and oversight and checks. So we knew that every output we created had to be read and proofread again by a human. But more importantly, as a social media agency and consultancy, our values are about being communicators. And in social media, community management is a vital part of that trust building work and really understanding our audiences. So for us, community management wasn't going to be something that we used AI for. And I know there's AI tools out there that promise to do that. But again, for us, authenticity wise or authentically wise, we decided that we weren't going to use it. So when we were clear on what we would and wouldn't use AI for, we created a simple transparency statement and a policy. What is a transparency statement? For us, it was a short and clear explanation of how and why we use AI in the business. We then went on to craft a policy both internal, so for our team when they start, what guardrails are in place for them to be able to explore and utilize these tools. But we also created a public facing policy that sits on our website that tells people quite openly how we define our use cases and why we've decided to use AI. And we clearly state it's not about replacing people, it's actually about making us more efficient and productive, and allowing us to deliver more value for our clients. So when we're crafting a transparency statement, there's three things to include: where you use it. So is it for drafting content, brainstorming ideas, admin tasks? Why you use it. So maybe again, it's about helping you save time, improve consistency, deliver more value. Um, where you're, how you're going to be using it as well. And also remember to include the how you safeguard quality and, in particular, data. In other words, where do you make sure that nothing goes out without that human oversight, so that it's not unchecked and that data isn't used incorrectly, and that the tools you do use are GDPR compliant, for example? So to give you a really simple example, at Naturally Social, our statement is pretty straightforward. We use AI tools like Canva and ChatGPT to help with brainstorming and drafting content. But every piece of content is reviewed, refined, and personalized by our team. This means you get more value faster while knowing the human expertise and judgment is still there. So for us, it's simple, reassuring, and transparent. We even created our own authenticity statement. So when we create content online, things like email newsletters or social posts, we have a little stamp that will say this is 100% authentic, or 85% of this newsletter was written by me, a human, for example. So have a think about it for your own role or business. Where might you be using AI already? And what kind of phrases or use cases could you include in your own transparency statement? There is a lot of mistrust in this AI era on the internet, so be open about your use of it. There is a lot of mistrust on the internet about AI content, so it really is our responsibility to be open and transparent about how we intend and actively use it. So, of course, transparency is one part of this puzzle for being authentic with AI. The other part is making sure that it doesn't steal your personality. The survey I mentioned earlier by Metrical also found that about 45% of social media professionals specifically were cautious about using more AI tools because of the quality concerns. And we've all seen AI content that feels a bit robotic, right? So it's bland, it's generic, it's just not quite like you or the person that you thought you were reading it from. So I like to use a really simple 3-point check whenever I'm using AI. Firstly, voice. Does this actually sound like me? If not, I'll either tweak the prompt or I'll tweak the output until it does. Then it's about values. Does this really reflect what I stand for and the way that I want to show up? Is it giving that kind of individual feel to the topic matter? And then when it comes to visuals, does it look like something that I would share? Are the fonts, colors, and style consistent with my brand? And here's also a pro tip. Update your settings with your brand voice in any of the LLMs or chatbots that you're using. Upload examples of your brand voice, upload examples of what good looks like. You can supply a list of banned words that you don't want it to use, or you can create your own brand prompt if you don't have a brand guidelines doc. So mine might be something like, always write in a knowledgeable but fun tone using UK spelling, short sentences, and accessible language. And this way, every time I generate content, it comes out pretty close to my natural voice. My other tip is that when you do get great outputs and you felt that there was a little bit of a struggle to get there, or you finally got a great output after days or weeks of trying, ask the AI how you should have prompted it to begin with to get that output, and then start your own prompt library. So, another kind of example of where we've taken that knowledge to support more authentic use of AI, we created an app using Canva code, and we've used this with businesses and with our team members. So, most of the small businesses that we're working with don't have a background in social media or comms, but they've naturally spotted the opportunity for using AI to write content for them. But they keep telling me that they're not impressed with the outputs, or the outputs are pretty inconsistent. So I created a prompt to publish workflow, I called it, that helped them sense check their outputs against key factors that would make their final outputs shareable. So things like brand voice, checking for bias, ensuring facts were correct. And we recently took the PDF version of that, as I said, and used Canva code to create this interactive app that they could use anytime they wanted until they got more and more confident with what to look for. And we now use this in our team with new starters or work experience people. They now use this instead of asking me, which removes me from the bottleneck and gives them ownership. So there's about 10 questions. Does it align with your brand voice? Are there biases and those kind of questions? And when answering no, we then provide a piece of information or a step that they need to, a lesson that they can then go back and implement with their prompting, so that when they can get to question 10, having clicked yes all the way through, their prompt and their output is ready to publish. Finally, let's tackle the big one. What happens when a client or a customer asks you about AI? So the key for me is to position this as efficiency and not replacement. Customers want to know that you're not cutting corners, but that they want to know you're working smart. So on the screen here, you can see some of my quick do's and don'ts for this when you're having those conversations. And this can actually help you to form your policies as well. Do frame AI as a tool that helps you deliver value. Don't apologize for using it though. Be sure to highlight the benefits to them. So faster turnaround, lower costs, more consistency, but don't oversell it as magic. So keep it grounded. So as an example, a client might openly say, "Are you using AI?" And a response to that could look something like this: "Yes, we are. We use AI to support with task, so which helps us to deliver Y benefits, but all strategy, editing, and approvals are 100% human." Again, that's confident, it's transparent, and it's reassuring. So, as we wrap up on this session, AI is here to stay. You don't need to hide it. You don't necessarily need to use it if you don't want to. But being clear about that is one of those 5 key steps to using it authentically. You do, however, need to own it if you are using it. Own it with your transparency, your confidence, and be authentic in its use. So to wrap up, I want to remind you of a few things from today. Get clear about what you will or won't be using AI for. Follow this 5-step framework for trialing and testing. Craft a simple AI transparency statement that you can use in email footers, newsletters, or on your website. Create a policy for your teams, whether internal or freelance support. Always sense check your outputs. Don't simply copy and paste them. And lastly, be open and confident when talking to customers or clients about your use of AI. So thank you so much for spending your time with me today. Really hope you enjoyed that. If you do want to reach out, I'm Natalie Luckham on LinkedIn. You can also email us info@naturallysocial.co.uk. If you're ready to really dive deeper into using AI in your business, your charity, or your team, then do get in touch. We run an AI Made Easy Accelerator program 4 times a year, and we've got a whole host of other courses available as well. So stay curious, stay transparent, and keep it authentic. Thanks, everybody.